If you want to know what life was like for someone in the past, you usually open a history book. But there's a quiet problem with that. For centuries, the people who wrote those books were the ones who held the keys, the power, and the weapons. When we talk about how life was for Black people through history, we are often handed a simplified story that starts in chains and ends with a civil rights march. But that story is incomplete. To find the real daily lives of the people who lived it, we have to look past the official records of empires and find the footprints they left in the soil, the songs, and the silent spaces of the past. What did daily life actually feel like before, during, and after the world shifted? Long before external contact reshaped the continent, daily life for Black people across Africa existed in an almost infinite variety of forms. It wasn't a primitive wilderness. It was a patchwork of highly organized, complex societies. In the medieval empires of West Africa, like Mali and Songhai, a normal Tuesday for a citizen involved bargaining. Farmers brought millet and rice to bustling markets, trading with merchants who traveled thousands of miles across the desert with gold and salt. In cities like Timbuktu, life was deeply academic. Thousands of scholars walked the streets, studying astronomy, mathematics, and law. These weren't isolated kingdoms. They were global centers of learning. For the average person, life was defined by stable farming cycles, rich oral storytelling around evening fires, and deeply rooted community structures. But this stable foundation was about to face a massive, violent disruption. The transatlantic slave trade, beginning in the 15th century, didn't just extract labor, it attempted to erase identity. When millions of Africans were forced across the Atlantic, they were legally stripped of their names, their families, and their humanity. But human beings are not blank slates. Even under the brutal daily violence of plantation life, people found quiet, ingenious ways to live on their own terms. Enslaved women, before being forced onto ships or into fields, secretly braided seeds of rice, okra, and watermelon into their hair. They were literally carrying the agricultural future of their homeland on their heads, planting familiar crops in unfamiliar soil, just to have a taste of home. Spiritual life became a shield. Denied the right to practice their ancestral religions, they adapted. In places like Haiti, Brazil, and Cuba, they blended their traditional African cosmologies with Catholic saints. To the overseers, they were practicing Christianity. In reality, they were preserving their ancient gods. They did the same with music, using rhythms and call-and-response patterns, not just to pass the time during brutal labor, but to send coded messages of escape and survival. Life through history was also defined by active, organized defiance. In 1791, enslaved people in Haiti did something the world thought was impossible. They rose up, defeated the armies of Napoleon, and established the first free Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. It proved that the desire for self-determination could not be institutionalized out of existence. Even after the formal abolition of slavery in the United States, life remained a fierce daily negotiation for basic rights. During the Jim Crow era, under the constant threat of racial terror, Black communities did not simply fold. They built. Denied access to white institutions, they established their own universities, built independent churches, and ran national newspapers like the Chicago Defender to shape public opinion and organize mass migrations to safer regions. Today, the legacy of how Black people lived through history is not just found in museums. It is the very foundation of the modern world. It is in the music we listen to, the food we eat, the political philosophies of freedom we value, and the global systems of trade we rely on. To understand this history is to realize that Black people were never passive victims of historical forces beyond their control. They were, and still are, active creators, thinkers, and architects of the human story. Perhaps the real question isn't just what their lives were like, but how different our own lives would be without them.